What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk live from the Carton House here in Dublin, Ireland. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my main man, Jacob Punteri. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. Pittsburgh Steelers finished up their one and only practice today before taking on the Minnesota Vikings in week 3 here in Dublin, Ireland. A lot to dive into. We talked to the guys today. They got a warm welcome to the country, which was pretty cool. Talked to both Art and Dan Rooney as well. Now we are waiting patiently for Sunday with a stadium full of Pittsburgh Steelers, of Minnesota Vikings, and plenty of Irishmen, from what I have been told. I apologize that my voice is going to be a little quieter today. We're in a respectful area. The Wi-Fi isn't the boomist, so we're trying to keep ourselves static without getting too laggy here, and this is the best way to do so. Jacob, back in the Berg. I hope it stopped raining eventually. How you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good. I'll try my best to bring that Noah sort of boisterous energy in your stead, in your place. Super pumped that you're back with us today. I'm sure I can speak for all of us. We had some fun yesterday, but boy, oh boy, it's nice whenever I'm hanging out with you talking Steelers rather than just, sitting here wishing I was chatting with you. I'm doing good. It's been a little bit better in Pittsburgh. I think we all would be a little bit better in Dublin.
Yeah.
What went down today? I'm curious to see how everybody's reacting. Did the team look exhausted? What happened over at the Carton House today, my man?
Dude, everybody did definitely look very tired. Calvin Austin was the first person to talk to us today, and he came in and immediately you were like, "Oh, those eyes are baggy, my friend. They are sunk." And everybody was kind of the same way. They all told us a lot of the same stuff. It was, you know, they're ready. They're taking the advice that everybody is giving them on how to adjust accordingly in a short period of time. But at the same time, they did not get the world's best sleep before they came here. So we'll see what happens. I asked Troy Fautano today. I said, is part of this just riding the high of you're in Dublin and it is an international game and it is a bigger stage and all that stuff. And he said, yeah, of course. Like, it's a business trip at the end of the day. You got to do what you got to do. Everybody's going to be fine. It's 60 minutes of football and you got to push through it for 3 hours. He said, but also that adds into it. Like, this is something fun and unique, and everybody's kind of taken that as they move through this weekend. So I don't think it was as bad as I anticipated it, at least from the outside. They all got a little bit of time to take some naps when they got here. Calvin Austin told us that they didn't get a couple massages, and they have a full plan ahead on how to move forward. So I anticipate it being pretty okay. And then we went to practice. Again, this place is beautiful. Can't underestimate how or under explain how beautiful this place is. The practice field was awesome. I mean, Mike T was standing there with a couple of us, and he even said, he was like, "Can you believe this place? This is crazy." And it's just like those moments of like everybody sinking it in was pretty cool. And you felt that from the Steelers. The energy was high, even though people were like, that's what it was. Like, people were exhausted physically, but mentally so sharp and ready to go. And I think that's what we saw today. So it was a good time. And the practice facility was good. And I don't think the sleep deprivation is going to be as big of an issue as it would be for me and you. For me and you out here, it's like, what are we doing? For them, they're pretty okay.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta hope, like, with all of the amenities, I as impressive as a specimen as you and I might be, we're nowhere near the physical athletes that are these NFL players. And with all of the amenities, all the services they have at their disposal, you have to hope that they're able to sort of mitigate those things that might, if I flew 3 hours just anywhere in the continental United States, my ankles would be swollen up for days, So I don't have the massage table at my disposal to sort of help with those things. But I'm glad that the Steelers do. I'm glad that the Vikings also had a similar travel schedule as well. There's not going to be that competitive sort of advantage of one team having more what would that be? Acclimatization time acclimating to the time change and all those things. So I'm happy to hear it. I just hope they power through, and I hope they don't get caught up in a nap that goes a little bit too long, because there's nothing worse when you wanna nap for an hour, you nap for 2, nap for
Yeah.
3 instead, whole day's ruined. So happy to
No,
hear it.
I agree. I do have a question for you in terms of the acclimation process. The Minnesota Vikings will stay in the UK and go to London next week. They will get a full week before the Cleveland Browns show up to play them. The Pittsburgh Steelers chose not to come out here in coordination with them and the NFL. And it was almost like nobody should have an advantage this week. Do you agree with that? Do you agree that the Steelers, as the home team, should not have had an advantage to come out here early and adjust maybe to the schedule?
I I don't think one team should have a clear advantage in an international game, even with a home and away designation. I understand that, in a normal situation, yes, there is just sort of an advantage here. But what I think is, this is such a rare occurrence. This is, it's a Steelers home game, and I'm sure Croke Park will be indicative of that by like the
Yeah.
sort of fan reception. And it seems like, by all accounts from you and everyone else who's over there, that Steelers Nation is well traveled over to the land of Ireland and the land of the Roonies. So I don't think they should have a distinct advantage. I think both teams should have a very clearly similar, path of travel, amount of time in that area, amount of time of rest before and after, just to keep things as even Stevens, in my opinion. But maybe you feel differently because the Steelers are technically the home team.
I kind of do. Like, there's a part of me that says you should have some advantage. This takes away from their home games. Like you don't get this. It's not like, oh, instead you get an added home game back home and you take an away game away. No, this is like one of your home games. So to me, there should be some advantage. There should be some sort of, you get to be here. Now the Steelers don't have to travel for practice, which I think is big, but they have to travel an hour for the game, which is, you know, that, like, the Vikings will travel 20 minutes to the game. And I think that's, again, working in Minnesota's favor. So I don't know. Like, I go both sides. Like, I look at it, if this was in Pittsburgh, Minnesota would have to travel, and the Steelers would get that back. And I understand that it's like an international game, but somebody has to suffer in terms of losing a home game because of it. This is
Mhm.
just another game for Minnesota, and it stinks. Like, I get it. Nobody really wants to travel overseas and deal with the time difference and everything else. But I do think there's a part of me that's like, Minnesota would have to go to a different time zone and adjust and spend the weekend and then fly back and not get to run through or walk through their own facility and everything um, during a regular game. And now the Steelers just kind of lose that. So maybe not like a whole week, but I definitely think, like, if they came out Tuesday, landed Wednesday, and then moved from there, and Minnesota didn't show up until Monday or until Friday, like, I think that would have been a situation where, and Pittsburgh would have got to pick, but I think it would have been a situation that I kind of favored.
No, I think when you put it that way, like, yes, like the I guess I'm coming at it from a more like egalitarian approach, to put a nice word on top of it, where like
What a name.
the thing that's happening here is this isn't a NFL regular season home game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So like, there are advantages that they have whenever a team comes into Acrisure Stadium, like you just mentioned. Traveling across the continental United States from Minnesota to Pittsburgh, that's a 3-hour time difference. Like, that isn't
Yeah.
easy on the body, so to speak. I get that for sure. I think when you put it that way, it makes sense for the Steelers to have had some advantage. I don't think they, the correct me if I'm wrong, whenever went to London in 2013, that's what, like, the Vikings were there for a lot longer beforehand, right?
Yes, the Vikings were there. I think they had the same situation where they, no, maybe not, but yes, they had at least a couple of days advantage in that situation. And I just think that's how it should always, like, that's how Minnesota will be next week with Cleveland. And I think that that's how the home team should be able to treat it, show up, kind of make it, because that's by the end of the week, like, this becomes like your home. So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, here we go, we do have that advantage. And again, I don't think it's like a major advantage. Like, I still think you're playing in a foreign land, in a crowd that you don't know anything about. It is not, you don't get to go home and sleep in your bed, like all of these things. But I do think that trying to find that competitive edge and give it to a team, I think is something that they should have had to do, or should have had the option to do if they chose so. Let's talk about the practice or about the updates. I do have some exciting stuff, or we do have some exciting stuff to dive into in terms of injuries and who will likely be back on the field and what that means for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But real fast, I do have to show you guys. So the Steelers wore Celtic names on their jerseys today, which was awesome, and that was the equipment manager's idea. They tossed it out there. It was incredible. Troy Fautanu had hands down the best response to his jersey of anybody on the team. I want to share this with you guys.
Last name on the back of your jersey?
Man, I'm actually very upset because they didn't do anything with my last name, just added Mac in front of it. And I'm one of the 2 people on this team that didn't get their name changed, so I'm just like, Ireland kind of left me hanging out to dry on that one. But because, like, look, they didn't even change anything. They added Mac in front of it. Everyone got cool last names, but it is what it is.
Did you guys find that out today?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we were looking at everybody. Aaron was making fun of me. Teasing me that I was the only one that didn't get changed. But I went around and looked at everyone's last names to see, and there's one more other person. So
you and Ekuwale kind of pissed off together then?
I didn't ask him about it, but once I found him, I made sure to show Aaron.
Shout out to Troy, man. What a good dude. Him and Daniel Ekuwale were the only 2. Some of them I looked at and I was like, I have no idea how to pronounce any of these. These are crazy. God.
I know you're not a linguist, and neither am I, but like, what is it about Ikwale and Fautanu that they not translate to Gaelic or something? Like, how does that work? I was dying while that video was playing, by the way. You couldn't hear it, thankfully, because my mic was muted, but that, when he turned around and actually revealed that,
yeah, so funny.
Killer.
So
that's a comedy sketch.
Dude, the best part about it is Mason McCormick, who you would think pretty spot on Irish, right? Like that's the one. Totally different last name. They completely changed everything about it. But Troy Fautanu, man, I think they just were like, he'll be fine. It's no big deal. I would have picked something cool. Like I would have been like, if I was like Deshaun Elliott or somebody like that, I would have picked Jalen Ramsey. I would have picked like Team Badass, something like that. Like super crazy, just to make sure that, and that's what it would translate to. That I think it would be awesome. Shout out Troy, dude. He was a good time, especially when everybody was exhausted. It was cool to have that quick moment. Let's talk some injuries here. Deshaun Elliott, Joey Porter Jr., the 2 names to watch, obviously, this week. Jalen Warren and Jonnu Smith popped up on the injury report yesterday. Both of them at practice. I expect both of them to be good to go. No worries there. Even talked to Jonnu after the practice today, and he seemed totally fine. Joey and Deshaun are the big ones. I'm still not sold on Joey. I think that there is some possibility that he does not play in week 4 against the Minnesota Vikings, that he's still on the sideline dealing with a hamstring injury. Deshaun, I expect to be out there. I think Deshaun's ready to go. He looks ready to go. There's nothing about his game or anything like that or his practice participation that made you feel that he wouldn't play against the Vikings. I think that personally, that's a wildly big boost for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Like that is a game-changing boost that could change the outcome of the whole game. That's how I view this, is because you could talk Joey, and I think Joey's significant, obviously. What Deshaun is able to do at that safety position and what the Steelers have missed without him on the field, I think is noticeable on almost every single play. Him being able to be out there, I think could change the entire outcome of this game. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel ready that Deshaun, I mean, you saw him the rest of the week. I saw him today. Do you feel confident he'll be out there? And do you feel differently or the same about Joey?
Yeah, I feel very confident that Deshaun's gonna play. He looked, fully involved from the sort of light practice I would describe them going through on Thursday before they departed. Joey looked like he was ramping up more as well, but I feel similarly wouldn't be surprised if he's either limited or not active for one more week,
Yeah.
and then they just want to give him extra time. But it's funny. I Deshaun Elliott's impact is ginormous. Talked about it a little bit yesterday. Talked about it a little bit in my like preview of the upcoming matchup. Um, don't want to undersell that or sort of minimize that. But I do find it to be really interesting and fascinating how the sort of outside cornerback situation will perform and function against the wide receivers of the Minnesota Vikings. One of the things Tara Loston said about like Carson Wentz and sort of the advantage he provides over someone like a JJ McCarthy is he's so experienced in the NFL, you can't really trick him. And I think what that means for the Steelers defense is they're just going to probably have to watch out for getting beat by really good receivers on the outside and Justin Jefferson, who I imagine will see a lot of Jalen Ramsey. But then you got Darius Slay, who would be tasked with guarding Jordan Addison for the most part. Having someone like Joey Porter Jr. available with that longer reach, a little bit quicker on the outside, that might be the difference maker. That could be a real key here for the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Vikings. So while I totally agree that getting Elliott back is probably the more important piece for the long term, I think having Joey Porter Jr. available for this specific matchup might have helped just a smidge more, or maybe not to even compare it, would just be a vital piece for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I'm not confident that's going to happen because I'm not sure if he's going to play.
No, I'm not either, and I don't disagree with you in terms of them having the possibility, the potential to man a team like the Minnesota Vikings. And I mean, you look at the Minnesota side of things, and you could have as much faith as you want in Carson Wentz. At the end of the day, it's a 50-50 shot whether or not he's going to come out here and play as well as he did last week. And if he does,
Mhm.
star power in Joey and Jalen and everybody else to be able to do that, then yeah, you could probably man them and potentially shut them down. And you shut Justin Jefferson down, you shut Jordan Addison down. Like, you're telling me that the Jordan Mason factor is what you have to beat the Minnesota Vikings? Yeah, all right, cool. You did a good job. You did a really good job of putting yourself in favor of winning this game. So I don't disagree with that. And then on the Joey like attitude side of things, like to have him out there, I trust Brandon Eccles, but it just allows Jalen to do everything. It allows Darius to do everything. I do think that with Deshaun back, Jalen not having to play so much safety is pretty big. And I am excited to see Deshaun and Jabril Peppers for the first time because I think that's the duo. I think Juan Thornhill has fallen off pretty steadily with this team. Um, I think right now it's Deshaun, Jabril, Chuck Clark, and to let Jalen Ramsey play the outside, that'd be pretty good. Do you expect a Jalen Ramsey Justin Jefferson showdown in this thing?
I expect some of it. I mean, especially if Deshaun Elliott is back, I think that excuse me, gives you even more reason because I like, just to get sidetracked for a second, I like Brandon Eccles play a lot to start
Yeah,
the season. And I think the sort of important thing is to not elevate him above or not put him in situations to fail so much so that he has to be the one who's consistently guarding Jordan Addison, or that he for some reason or the other, Jalen Ramsey's playing safety, and then he has to be the one trailing Justin Jefferson in the situation. Like, you don't
yeah,
want to. I think they're gonna probably end up playing, a mix, a real solid mix of zone and man coverage because they don't want to get beat in those one-on-one matchups. But having Jalen Ramsey available as really just that floating corner rather than having to be designated back into the safety spot so much. I expect him to be going up against Justin Jefferson in very key moments and maybe like to open the game, maybe to open the second half, maybe if they're down a little bit or if they're up, trying to protect the lead. So I'm expecting to see some of it, but I do think the quote unquote scheme of Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin's defense is going to probably have more showings in this matchup.
yeah. I like that answer. I'm so excited for it. What's your key matchup here for this game? Like, what's your one like you gotta win it to put yourself in a situation to win both offensively and defensively?
Oh man, I know we're talking so much about defense, but in terms of like we're talking so much about the Steelers defense, but what I'm looking at so much and I'm very interested in is looking at the Steelers offense at DK Metcalf going up against most likely an Isaiah Rodgers from the Minnesota Vikings. And I
Yeah.
think of the star power, the incredible, Brian Flores has gotten so much of the attention this week, rightly so, as a former coach with the Steelers. He's someone who should be a head coach in the NFL, someone who will be a head
Yeah.
coach in the NFL again. He's a great defensive mind. It's awesome to talk about all the players, the Harrison Smith, the Theo Jackson, the entire defensive front. But Isaiah Rodgers is off to a crazy start. He had 2 defensive touchdowns, and he has last week against the Cincinnati or who do they play? Yeah, the Cincinnati Bengals. He has
Yes.
3 turnovers so far. He's been excellent in pass coverage. He's this guy who has just sort of developed into a very elite cover player. Can DK Metcalf get those matchups one-on-one? Can he beat him when that happens? If they can, this Aaron Rodgers revenge game that I know you've talked so much about, that's kind of the key to making that happen. And if that happens, then the defense, I think, can probably take care of what they are supposed to, but the offense has to win a critical matchup there. So I'd be looking at that.
I love that. I think Isaiah Rodgers has gotten more attention than any defensive player the Steelers have faced this season. Like, people just love talking about Isaiah Rodgers, and I mean, rightfully so. The guy's having a great year. He looks really, really good. And so I'm not taking anything away from it. I'm honestly I'm going the offensive line, like, across the board, pretty much. Like, you want to win this game. It's what trenches are better for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if they can run the football in any capacity, you don't got to get 100 yards. Could you get 70? Can Jalen Warren have 70 yards? Like, because if he could have 70 yards and you could put a twist on this offensively that just changes a lot of things, and you could control the clock, which is something the Steelers haven't been able to do in 3 weeks, I think you put yourself in position to control the outcome of the game. Because that's the thing, is the Steelers have not controlled the clock once in any game.
No.
Okay. Try to figure it out. And if you could control the clock, if you could own the time of possession, and your defense is still forcing turnovers and doing things, you give yourself a much better shot to win this ball game. I also think it's what offense is less rattled by the random cheering that Aaron Rodgers tossed out there today, because it's the first time I've ever thought about that, is these fans are going to cheer when they're on offense. And the Steelers are going to be like, I would like that to not happen. That would be awesome. So what's going to happen? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Mhm.
Also, very underrated fan moment here here in Ireland is everyone should really pay attention to how loud the stadium gets when Corliss Waitman gets the football in his hand, because one thing people over here love is a good kick of the ball, and Corliss Waitman, man, that man boots him. So but mine would be the offensive line in this one, and that's going to be it every week until they can figure it out. But I think if you could control the time of possession, you take a lot away from Brian Flores' defense.
Yeah, and it's funny because there was a lot that Arthur Smith said yesterday in his press conference that I didn't love or didn't necessarily agree with, but the one thing that I definitely did and think was a pretty keen, maybe simple, but needed to be said, was that they just haven't had possessions, like substantial enough of possessions and a substantial amount of possessions that move the ball down the field to really do anything that maybe the playbook can eventually scheme up and lead to. Like, they've either been converting quickly, or they've been getting shut down quickly. They've had a big play, they turn it over. Like, where is the consistency? I know that's what we're looking for early, but they need to be able to have longer possessions, and this would be the time to do it. So yeah, I hope that they're able to really take a step forward in a positive direction as far as time of possession, because it's been 3 straight weeks of them just kind of getting worked in that regard, and it certainly has to change.
Yeah, I agree. All right, it's that time. It's Friday. It feels like I don't even think days of the week exist over here. I have no idea what's going on, but it is nuts what is in my body, in my head right now in terms of time references. It just doesn't. None of it makes sense. whatsoever. It's 5:33 p.m. where I am. It's 12:33 p.m. where you are, and to me, nothing is adding up whatsoever. But we have to make our picks for Week 4: Pittsburgh Steelers, Minnesota Vikings. Here in good old Dublin, Ireland. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the home team, but they are not favored. The Minnesota Vikings have a 2.5-point spread over Pittsburgh, courtesy of our boys over at DraftKings, with a 40.5-point over-under. The Minnesota Vikings scored 40 points last week. The Pittsburgh Steelers have given up 30-plus twice. They've scored over 30 once. There's a lot going on here. I've gone back and forth all week, to be honest with you. The Deshaun Elliott, Joey Porter Jr. news was going to be a major factor in my deciding or my decision for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. I own a 1-game lead to you in our yearly challenge, and I will say that it almost comes with an asterisk, because both of us before last week's pod were like, I don't know if they're going to do it, and I decided to ride the wave of the yes, and I benefited from it, for sure. Benefited from it. We'll see what happens this week. 2.5 points, Minnesota Vikings, 40.5 over under, Pittsburgh Steelers, Minnesota in Ireland, Week 4. Who you got?
I think the Steelers are going to win this game. I'm gonna save all of the preamble. The Steelers are going to win this game. It's going to be low scoring, in my opinion. There's going to be some splash plays that happen, but aside from that, we're looking at something somewhat similar to Week 3. Steelers win this game. They leave Dublin 14 seconds after they win this game by a final score of 17-14.
Okay. 17-14.
Mhm.
That's a boring game. Such a boring game here. But
You're correct in that.
It's a midday, but people are weird. The time difference is strange. You just don't know what's going on. Game, I feel you on that one. I think both. I'm gonna get crazy with my pick here. Okay, I think both defenses scored a touchdown in this game. That's my. I wasn't on yesterday. I was eating dinner, courtesy of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Shout out to them. And my bold prediction was going to be both defenses score a touchdown in this game. I think that happens. Wow. I think this is a defensive battle that just, it seems more defensive than offensive, but the points are higher than you anticipate them being. I think it's a nail biter. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have this advantage called Mike Tomlin, because I look at the Mike T rule simply as, if this was the Super Bowl, I wouldn't trust the Mike T factor. If this was a playoff game, I wouldn't trust the Mike T factor. A Week 4 Dublin, Ireland game to juice it up about what it means to the organization and the Rooneys and the history of this franchise and the city of Pittsburgh and everything, and just get you a little bit of juice in there. You know what I mean? Okay. I think that's the perfect amount of Mike T that you could toss out there to make it work and work well. So I think they have this advantage called Mike Tomlin, and I think he's actually going to come in and play a pretty significant role. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers walk away winners here. They move to 3-1. I'm going 27-21 in this one, a game where Chris Boswell comes through with 2 second-half field goals to give you the advantage, and the Steelers defense shuts down Minnesota to the point where Carson Wentz can't do much. And they take the win 27-21, a weird score, a score that it's a very defensive game, but things just, they feel weird. It's just it's an international, an Irish thing. Things are different. In Ireland, things are not the same. So if this was in Pittsburgh, it'd be 14-17, but this is in Dublin, and here they do it different. I'm going 27-21. I think Pittsburgh Steelers walk away with this one.
Wow. So we're in agreement on the win, just not on maybe how it happens. So I can't really close the gap on our challenge in this upcoming week, but I hope we both are right to just kind of keep it going, to keep it trucking.
Keep it trucking. I love it so much. All right, guys. With that said, that's our picks this week. That's everything on our agenda. We're going to start answering your guys' questions. So toss them in the chat. We'll get to as many of them as we can. But first, a quick word from our boys over at DraftKings.
What's up, AST Nation? I've teamed up with DraftKings. The next great touchdown is coming. You can bet on it. And the best way to do so is through DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers who bet just $5 get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen. Then use your bonus bets to stay in on the action with DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. And don't worry, if sports betting is not yet available in your state, you're fine. You can still join in on all of the fun with DraftKings daily fantasy sports and have the shot to win cash prizes. New customers bet $5. That's $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Sign up using my promo code ALLSteelers and get in on the action today. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
Alrighty, I'll shout out our boys over at DraftKings. Shout out to our members. Shout out to our super chatters. If you guys have questions, toss them in the chat. We'll get to as many of them as we can before we head out of here. I want to make a big shout out to Yinzer Jake becoming a YouTube member. Make sure you're calling into the Wednesday call-in show. We'll have another one dropping tomorrow from all of the leftover calls. We do have to figure something out, and I'm going to figure it out next week when I get back from overseas on what we'll have to do to split these up, because we get more calls that come in. I feel like I miss some of them because I pre-record everything. We're going to figure it out, whether it's we take the calls from Monday to Wednesday and Wednesday to Friday. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I'm very excited for tomorrow's episode. Cody Silva. Oh, man, Noah's back. JK Noah, you the man. Jacob, I got to give you props, my friend. I watched it yesterday, the whole cab ride home. Fantastic episode. Crushed it, my man. And the feedback was all love and positivity. So we loved it. We loved every second about it. Appreciate you filling in for me as I drank Guinness and ate some rigatoni. I can't even lie to you. I wasn't even doing anything significant. I was eating rigatoni and I was drinking Guinness, and it was a good time. It was a good time.
That's as you know. Listen, man. The amount that you do, the amount of work that you do. You know, I know the picnic pack sees it. I see a lot, even more of that behind the scenes. So you know, when you said that you couldn't, you didn't think you would actually be able to do it, I knew that you had tried everything you could before that to get onto the show, and you just couldn't make it happen. So if it takes going a couple thousand miles across an ocean for a team obligation, I'll fill in for you, dude. It's all good. We had a fun time. Everyone wants all love in the comments and who joined on, and that made it all the more fun. Happy to fill in, as I said earlier. Even happier to be chatting with you, though.
My guy, I appreciate you. I will say I went to this place called the Brazen Head last night. It was a bar that was it was built in arts. It was founded in the 1100s. And I'm not a historian by no means. I am no Aaron Rodgers when it comes to this, but I will say that I was like, I don't think that there was. I'm pretty sure there weren't buildings or beer in 1100. Was totally wrong on both of those fronts. So shout out to
What do you think they did back then, man?
Dude, built the wheel. I have no idea. Like, you know what I mean? Discovered fire. I wouldn't tell you. Like,
ooga.
Yeah, like hung out with their pet dinosaurs. I have no idea, dude. I just think that's so wild to me. So wild. Egyptian Cobb salad, hopefully with an almost fully regrouped defense. Hopefully our boys step forward. All hail the picnic pack. And guess who is going to be a dad, dude? Wow, brother. Shout out Egyptian Cobb salad. My God, dude. Congratulations,
dude.
I wish I could get more hyped. I wish I was not in this beautiful castle looking thing. Wow, bro. That's so awesome, man. Shout out to Egyptian Cobb salad, man. That made my whole day, bro. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, congratulations, my guy. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Shout out, my guy. Shout out. ND Joe.
Love babies, man. Sorry to interrupt. I'll just say it. Got to get an all Steelers talk onesie over there. All I'm saying.
I don't even know how to make those, but I'll figure it out. Shout out. Hit me, Egyptian Cop. Yeah, you remember. Hit me with that. Email me. Shoot me that email. We'll figure it out. The maybe a little baby hack. I don't know if we can do baby hacks. We'll figure it out, man. We'll figure it
Yeah,
out. They're gonna grow.
talk,
Babies
talk.
grow. We'll get you. We'll figure it out. Shout out Gypsy Cop Salad, man. Love you, dude. Congratulations. ND Joe, the Steelers 100% should have had an advantage. This is their first home game abroad, and every other team they have played overseas has had an advantage. Once again, the NFL writer screwed our Steelers.
No,
Okay,
that's
so
it.
I'm having a hard time with it because I've heard it's the NFL. I've heard it's a little bit of the Steelers. I've heard it's a mix. I think I believe both. Like I think the Steelers had an opportunity, but I also think that like maybe accommodations weren't like the most swimming, smooth, like welcoming thing to make it happen. So I do agree. I think that the Steelers should have been over here earlier in the week to be able to adjust, and had that advantage. I wish I knew all the details of how it went in, but I do think it's a little crazy. And I think that the Browns next week, like to not be out here all weekend for the the Vikings to be out here for a full week, like that's crazy to me. Crazy. You
Yeah.
have such an advantage there.
That part's absolutely crazy to me. And as you were saying that, I was like replaying in my head because you talked to Art Rooney II today and Dan Rooney. And I was like going through and like transcribing the videos that you sent. And what Art Rooney said about them coming over earlier kind of seemed to indicate to me, if I'm remembering correctly, that like it was more of a business decision to come over here
Yes.
around that time rather than like the league mandated. But it seemed like there were some other conversations that were said or some other words that were stated earlier in the week that was like, the NFL kind of dictated the schedule. And I guess those two things aren't opposing, but they are very carefully said, as to not really assign the blame as to why they're only here for a day. I know they have all these things. We talked about all the amenities and all the things at their disposal, but like, I'm very lucky to have gone to Europe a couple times in my life. It was never the first day that I got there. It was always like the start of like the 25th hour after I had gotten into that place. Like,
Yeah.
get over there, you're fine for a little bit, you're running on fumes and adrenaline and excitement, and then you're like, oh man's not supposed to fly. And then you kind of experience that downfall. So I'm just hoping that doesn't actually hit tomorrow, or like
Sunday.
so exactly. That's my fear. So yeah, I think the more we talk about it, the more you explain it, ND Joe, the fact that they didn't come over here earlier is kind of aggravating me more.
Yeah, I agree. Egyptian Cobb Salad's got another one, and we got to give a shout out here to No Coast Golf. Egyptian Cobb Salad gonna have a side salad. Unbelievable comment. Unbelievable comment, dude. Unbelievable.
That's killer. That's my favorite thing of the day.
Shout out, my guy. Shout out. Egyptian Cobb Salad. Any word on the Dexter Lawrence trade, and what would Omar give up for sexy Dexy? Look, I don't think the Steelers are actively pursuing the move. I haven't heard anything about them. I think there should be conversations. They feel confident and ready that they want him to load up their defense all summer. And according to reports, they continue to want to do that. I don't know if they're actively out there trying to do it. They should be. And what I'd give up is as heavy as I'd have talks of a first round pick, but I'd feel very confident about a second round pick, and there wouldn't be almost any conversation about it. I would give up a second round pick for him easy.
Second round pick is a no brainer in my opinion. And sorry, I was just seeing something about Jalen Warren.
Yeah, big news on Jalen Warren.
But sorry, that totally threw me off. I think a second round pick is totally on the table here. Again, if the Pittsburgh Steelers think that he is the missing piece, the plug in the middle of the defensive line, you have already, thrown in all the chips to the center of the table. What is stopping you from giving up that second round pick if you know that you still have double-digit picks going into the 2026 NFL draft. Yeah, I think you can probably still make that trade up happen for the quarterback if you really so desire him, or you can just sit tight and add, double-digit players that hopefully have NFL talent. I don't know. I think they would do that. I still have not heard, despite my continued desire for them to maybe pursue them and my growing desire, I have not heard anything to indicate otherwise that they
Yeah.
would actually be pursuing him.
No, me neither. And again, we'll see what happens. Big news here: Jalen Warren is officially listed as questionable for Sunday. That's super significant, actually. What's your thoughts on potentially no Jalen in this one? That would be a potential killer for the Pittsburgh
That
Steelers offense.
that is of the no momentum that the Pittsburgh Steelers offense had, the inch of it that they had gained. Oh, can you hear me okay
Uh,
still?
Yeah, you'll come back.
Okay. The inch of it that they had gained was Jalen Warren looking, and Aaron Rodgers said it himself. He has looked ready to go from the start of the season. He is the only part of this offense that has looked like they could reach the next level, and they're just itching to break out, in my opinion. Him not being able to go, we're gonna see, 100% offensive snaps with Kenneth Gainwell. Would see, we'll see more Trey Sermon, which is something that I think you and I have both agreed could be a helpful thing, but not a 50-50 split with Kenneth Gainwell as a result. So if he can't go, man, I said it was going to be a boring, low scoring game from the Steelers' perspective. Even more so, I think my opinion about that kind of gets hammered in. That's a tough blow. Jalen Warren, I think was again off to maybe the only somewhat good start, or the somewhat promising start within the Steelers offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's how you're going to build the game here is you are going to have to, or build the running game is you're going to have to lean very heavily on Jalen Warren. I think that it opens the door for Kenneth Gainwell and Trey Sermon. I don't think this is going to be a Caleb Johnson heavy game. I think this will be a lot of Trey Sermon, a lot of Kenny G. I don't know what you're going to get from that. I don't know if you're
Nothing.
yeah, like not much, right? Like you're
Yeah,
gonna
I'll
look
say
at
I'll
both
say it
of
from
them.
this side because you're being nice over there. You get nothing if you get, but turn your headphones down now so no one hears behind you. But you get the running game takes such a ginormous hit if there
Yeah.
is no Jalen Warren back there. Again, there's not much. You're talking about going from 1-0 basically, but like, God, if you think the offensive line gives no push with Jalen Warren back there, imagine Trey Sermon just trying to go in between the tackles and just running straight into Zach Frazier's butt. Like it's just not.
No,
Ah,
but dude, it's not. It's a bad time. You desperately need Jalen out there. We'll see what happens. He definitely practiced today. He was a limited participant, but he definitely practiced today. I'm not positive he's gonna play. A knee injury is tough, especially when that pops up late. He's got the sleeve on it. They want to be cautious. It's not good, brother. It's not. It's not good. Do you think that? Do you think that we see any Caleb Johnson in this? Do you think we see any Caleb Johnson? You got any faith this could be a bounce back game?
no, not at all. And it's so funny because my immediate reactions, and as you were, where Trey Sermon gets an elevated role, you were saying what you thought, and I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? There's a third round rookie running back on this roster. I doubt he's just not a part of the plans. I talked a little bit about Roman Wilson not factoring into the team's offensive plans yesterday moving forward. Like Caleb Johnson is in that same exact spot from my perspective. Yes, he continues to grind and work hard in practice, and I think that it's a valuable growing time for him in that regard, but it does not translate to on the field snaps or more trust from the coaching staff in those moments. So if there's no Jalen Warren, which again, don't know, questionable. Johnny
Yeah, we'll
Smith
see.
and Joey Porter Jr. are also listed as questionable in the latest injury report. So wide variety of options here when you were given that designation. Without Jalen Warren, though, I think we're going to see a lot of Trey Sermon. We're going to see a lot of Kenneth Gainwell. Still not a chance for a bounce back game for Caleb Johnson,
That's
unless you feel differently.
No, I don't actually, and I think that Jonnu being questionable is also significant. I think we talked Joey, but I just think that you're losing some pretty huge pieces to your defense here in ways that you don't want to lose them. Or to your offense, excuse me, in ways that you don't want to lose them. Definitely not good. Dougie Fresh, we'll get back to these. With all of these new defensive signings, I haven't been able to keep up with the contracts. Can you go through the secondary and tell me who stays and who is on one-season rentals, who possibly gets extended? Yeah, we can go through the secondary.
Yeah.
Brandon Eccles is on a 2-year deal, so he'll stay. Darius Slay's on a 1-year deal. He's a rental. He's probably going to retire after the season. Corey Trice this is his 3rd season, so he'll have one more after this. He's got to stay healthy to be able to do it. Joey Porter's in the same boat. Jalen Ramsey's on a multi-year deal. He's got, 2 seasons left after this
Yes.
one. So he'll be here forever. Deshaun Elliott just signed an extension, so he'll be here for the next 3 seasons. And Jabril Peppers, Juan Thornhill, and Chuck Clark are all 1-year deals, which means they are here for 1 year. I think Jabril has an opportunity to extend himself. I don't think the other 2 right now are. I think Juan Thornhill's fallen out pretty heavily with this team. But those are the guys that are here. I think the only extension, Joey will likely get an extension after the season, and like maybe Peppers / Chuck, one of them gets a deal. But the Steelers, it'll be as a 3rd safety. The Steelers will want to keep or add to that room in the offseason with somebody a little bit more significant. But that's how they'll approach the season or the secondary there. And then they'll draft most likely another corner to be on the outside and to be that dominant guy. Unless you feel different.
No, I think the only thing that could maybe shift their plans is the emergence of Jabril Peppers. I could see them wanting to just bring him back, and that sort of solves the safety issue for 2026, and then they deal with it again the following season. But yeah, aside from that, like, Jalen Ramsey's pretty locked in. He just makes more money for the next couple of years. There's some roster bonuses that he's owed after, I think it's whatever under the league year starts, and then you're looking at a lot of dead cap space if you are to release him before looking over here over the cap. If you release him before like 2028, you're basically going to incur a $25 million dead cap thing. So you are not putting yourself in the best position. You're basically going to have him for the long term. And I think Joey Porter Jr. is probably the only other person who is not currently under contract for multiple years who will sign a second contract of the group currently there. So everyone else you can think of is basically just rentals or on a year-to-year lease.
Yeah, I very much so agree. Shout out Dougie Fresh here. Congrats, Egyptian Cobb Salad. We're all celebrating Egyptian Cobb Salad today, my guy. Congratulations. Just too many hurt at practice. No, where's the beer? It'll be here. It'll be here after. Don't even worry about it. I think I started counting my Guinnesses because again, I was challenged to the 40 Guinnesses before the game. I think we're at 18, which is not an impressive number, but
you are running out of time.
Yeah, look at it. I got a lot of people on my back here trying to get me there. So Irish bars are weird, man. Some of them close at like 11 p.m. and you're like, how am I supposed to drink 12 Guinnesses tonight if it's closed at 11 p.m.? I just don't, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen here. Just too many words. Got more coming. Top of the morning to Noah. Do you think the NFL should add a day to an international game to allow for sleep adjustment? I think that teams should be able. I mean, we've talked about this a number of times. Like, I think teams should be able to go out earlier in the week. I think the Steelers should have been here on Tuesday, and or Tuesday into Wednesday and practiced, and then went from there. I think that makes way more sense. I don't really care about the visiting team. I think you should always have a disadvantage as a visiting team. But I think for the home team, yeah, I think you should have been able to get out there a little bit earlier. And then just too many hurt one more time. Are they announcing the defense or the offense in the game? I don't know, to be honest. I would guess they announced the offense on Sunday or in week 2. So I'm guessing the defense is going to get the announcements out here. That would be my guess. This is a good one here. Cody Silva. Is it possible because he hasn't been in, he as in Deshaun Elliott, he will have bad communication? My guess is no. I think Deshaun is an excellent communicator and a voice of the defense. So I think it's going to be the opposite. I think he's going to help communication a ton once he's in there. But I view that as nothing but a positive because of what I've seen and the way he communicates to the defense already.
Yeah, I think yes, I don't think there's going to be any issue on his behalf. I think he was basically or mainly responsible for facilitating a lot of the communication within the secondary. And I forget, it was either, I don't remember if Jalen Ramsey talked to us when I was at the facilities the past couple of days, or if it was on last Friday before they went to New England or whatever it was. But someone asked him about communication, and he was basically like, "It's not a problem. Like it's like we're football players. Like we just tell each other what Like you just communicate. Like there is not like some missing language broker that needs to come into play to further facilitate. I think what the message that I've been receiving and that I'm seeing from the Steelers is that it's not like, oh, they're not getting the message at the right time and, they're missing out on things. They're just not executing up to their standards so far. And they saw some progress in week 3. They think they can do it again in week 4. So I'm not worried about Deshaun. I think he will, if anything, Cody will help that communication aspect.
Yeah. Maddie here. Will Harmon be on a snap count this week? I don't anticipate one. I think he'll be back to full go, and they'll be ready to let him go. And I think that he moved around a little bit. I think he allows everybody else to move around a little bit. I think it's pretty significant what he's going to bring to this defense a second week with more snaps. But I personally don't think Derek Harmon's going to be on a snap count. Do you feel different, the same?
I didn't see anything to sort of indicate that at practice this week. It seems like they were pretty pleased with what he did, and they want to be cautious, right? Like an MCL sprain, a knee is tricky, as we just talked about with with other players and Joey Porter and stuff like that. Like they want to be careful, but he's so impactful and he is such a difference maker already. If he's not showing any signs or setbacks, he's just going to be going from the beginning.
Yeah. Anti-pasta, what's your optimism level that the Steelers offensive line can hold up if our line plays well and gives Jalen room to run? It opens up the whole offense. Our receivers need room to operate. What's your optimism level against the Minnesota Vikings this week that the offensive line can hold up?
It's great, dude. It's effing great. No, it's the one piece of it that feels slightly encouraging is there's no Van Ginkel isn't playing. So like that's a big loss. And that creates some help for the offensive line. I have low confidence in them until they prove me otherwise. I like them. They've been fun to cover. Like that's not what I'm saying at all, but like they don't inspire confidence in me until they show me that they can go from start to finish full 60 minutes of just being solid. And there's, pick who you want, pick anyone out of the bunch and we'll pick on them for it, but I'm not very confident.
No, I'm not either. Like almost all. And until they show me a reason to be, I'm gonna remain that for sure. Asada Burrito, no jealous. You get to hear Renegade in Ireland. Please document the experience. I will definitely do my best. It's always tricky. You never know when it's coming up. You know what I mean? It's sneaky. It's like, oh my, and you're like, oh. And then you gotta freak out for a second. You know what I mean? You just try your hardest. So I will do it. I am pumped to hear it. I think it's gonna be awesome. Again, there are a lot of things I'm very excited for. I think top of my list right now is hearing the crowd go nuts when Corliss Waitman punts a football, because I'm just gonna be like, wow, did these the simple things in life, man. The simple things in life.
That's a beautiful moment.
For sure. Yinzer Jake, I know it's been said before, but trade Alex Highsmith and let Herbig start. What position do you trade for and who? I think the only answer is Dexter Lawrence or an offensive tackle.
Yeah, I would make that trade in a heartbeat. And Highsmith did not make the trip, correct?
No, but neither did Isaiah Loudermilk. I would have guessed that's more of an elevation swelling thing than anything else. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that they are actively moving him.
No. Sorry, I didn't mean to suggest that. Just was making like he's still not coming back. He's clearly a little bit away. By the fact that he is not. It didn't make enough sense to travel internationally. So I want to see him back and healthy more than anything, and I want to see him impacting the defense on that right side opposite TJ Watt. But man, Nick Herbig, talk about no fall off. Like, because I saw a comment about like, the replacement for Van Ginkel has looked solid for Minnesota. Like that's just Minnesota defense. They're solid. The fall off has not been there going from Alex Highsmith to Nick Herbig. And I think the more opportunity he gets, the harder it's going to be for Alex Highsmith to come in here and sort of reclaim his starting spot or reclaim it solely just in that role.
Yes, I agree. Captain Sparkle injury report just came out. Joey Porter Jr., Warren, and Jonnu are questionable. We talked to Warren. We talked to Joey Porter, Jonnu here. How worried are you? I mean, like, what's the impact of losing Jonnu if you do lose Jonnu in this one?
It's not much right now. It's the same reason that I don't feel like I was very hopeful for a while that Jonnu Smith is going to be, like the wide receiver 2, quote unquote. He was going to be like the second most, he's going to be Aaron Rodgers' favorite target through 3 weeks, despite Arthur Smith really having a fascination and an infatuation with Jonnu Smith. They just cannot figure out a way to get him the ball consistently. They are trying all these different things. I don't really know what the answer is. If he's not playing, I don't think it's going to be the biggest loss for week 4. That all going forward, they have to find a way to incorporate him more and to make him a primary target, to use, Arthur Smith's words, a little bit more going forward. And then also, if he's not there, Freiermuth, I'm fine with. And, a player that you and I love so much is Darnell Washington. So like I'm fine with that duo running it back for a week or a couple weeks if Jonnu is injured.
I thought you were going to say Connor Hayward. That's where I thought you were going with that one. So
yeah, I mean, he's better than both of them. So hopefully the best players find the field.
That's what they say all the time. Vincent, where's Corey Trice? He's actually on injured reserve. He did make the trip out here, though, which I thought was cool. Him, Will Howard, Dante Kent, and Skylar Thompson were all here, which is awesome. Carl, Mean Cup of Joe, green bean salad, spackler. Any shepherd's pie yet? No, I have not had any yet. It's on my to-do list, though. I've had fish and chips because I've heard it's unbelievable. I've had a bunch of sourdough bread because I've heard it's unbelievable. I've obviously eaten more potatoes than anybody on the planet right now. The belt loops are getting less and less by the day. So shepherd's pie is next. And I will report back. I will report back 100%. And Zach, am I the only one noticing Mason McCormick has been almost as bad as Broderick this year so far? Is this concerning to y'all? I think a lot. I think there are 5 guys on the offensive line. I think 4 of them have not played well, to different various degrees. But what's your thoughts on Mason?
So I agree. I think 4 out of 5 have been the problem on the offensive line. I think Mason McCormick is showing, he's following this trend that a couple of other previous Steelers guards have gone down, where they are kind of thrust into a starting role very early. They show signs that are promising. They're able to sort of withstand an early test, but then they plateau really quickly because there's nothing else that really gets, the Steelers kind of assume that since he was good in year 1 in 10 games, he will be a 10-year starter forever, which might be true. Like Zach Frazier, right? Like comes in as a rookie and he looks to be an anchor for the next decade. I think Mason McCormick can be a very good right guard, and I don't think he's the biggest problem on the offensive line.
No.
There is some concerning techniques, there's some concerning bad habits kind of developing. And I think because the tackles are the bigger fish to fry, it's kind of getting overlooked, but it's good. If they can finish the tackles or figure out the tackle situation first, it relieves a ton of the pressure on Mason McCormick to have to be that unflappable guard next to Zach Frazier. But, in an ideal world, they do start to address these so it doesn't turn into a sort of like Kevin Dotson situation where he just there's some simple things to figure out. And if you do that, all of a sudden he's a very good, reliable guard. You can't let him get down the road of going into these bad habits and getting into some troubling technique and then expect him to just sort of continue to be productive and good. Just won't happen.
I agree. And I think that we walk a line of like expectations versus reality with a guy like that. And those expectations can't be as high. But again, he's also a 2nd-year guy compared to a 3rd, which I think is a significant number. That 3rd year of like, yikes, dude, you're here, you're a pro, versus 2nd year, okay, still learning. Not great. You don't want to be bad, but still learning, I think is a big move here. All right. With that said, guys, we're heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk Live from the Carton House with the creepy pictures behind me here in Dublin, Ireland. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Oh, I should probably take this little photo down here, huh? This little comment. There you go. Now everybody can see
that's where it is.
That's where we are. We will be back on Monday. Jacob's show, since we changed schedule here, Jacob's show, Punturi's, I forget what Punturi's playbook. I don't think we've come up with a name, but I think that one right now sounds awesome. So we'll rock with it for the moment. We'll drop at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure to check that one out on our YouTube channel. Until then, I hope everybody enjoys another beautiful day in the book. Peace.